Hey guys, Woods Farm here, just back out working on the Kubelwagen. Starting to fall a little bit behind schedule this winter, but hopefully I can get back on track. Basically right now it's just little odd jobs that I'm doing to get everything ready for the spring. And obviously I want to get working on the canopy. That's something that's going to be down the road, but today I'm just going to work on some little things. Got some parts in the mail. Mainly some electrical stuff, but I'm also going to do some work today on some latches to allow me to do some painting. I'm going to get it nice and warm in the garage, and that should give me a chance to paint some stuff. So I got to weld some pieces, and these are the little latches that close for the trunk. I'm going to work on those and then get them painted. I finally went ahead and ordered my tail lights. So these act as the brake light, tail light, signal light, and they also have a backup or a license plate light. So what I need to do is take these apart so I can paint the various components, the housing, and once everything's painted to match, then I'm going to reassemble it, and then these get mounted on the back and wired up. I've got a horn. This is just a motorcycle horn. I'm just going to mount this under the front hood somewhere hidden, and that'll serve as a horn. And then I've got a signal switch. So this gives me left and right turn signals. It also has a hazard light, I believe. Somehow works here. I think you pull this out for the hazard, like that. And it also has a horn button. So I'm going to work on wiring that up too. I've got most of the wiring done, so this will be kind of the finishing touches. So I went ahead and stripped these right down. Wasn't that difficult. There was 2 rivets. There's a plate in here that has the 2 light bulb mounts and acts as a ground, and those had to get riveted, drilled out, and I'll either re-rivet or bolt it in place. I'm just going to scuff this up. It's kind of powder coated. I'm just going to scuff it up a bit. Hopefully the paint will adhere to it. Okay, so there's one of the lights reassembled with the paint. I had to take the mounting bracket off just to drill holes. It's actually, this hole is the real reason the mounting bracket had to come off. I had a piece of paper with what wire was what, but looked all over, couldn't find it, so I just had to hook up a test light and just determine what these wires do. Black is the brake, red is the running light, blue is the signal, and green is a ground. I have a wire going right to the panel to ground. Generally these light systems rely on the housing connecting to the body and that being the ground point, but a lot of times that'll fail because you get a little rust or corrosion, and it'll cause it not to ground out. So I added a ground wire. We'll see how that works, if it just makes it any better. Got the driver's side done, so now I'm just going to move on to the passenger side. Got some holes to drill. Then I got to remove the bracket and wire up the light, and then everything gets remounted. So I've got to drill a hole through the back panel to allow the wiring harness to come through. Okay, so there we go, we're all wired up. One of these is a ground. and the other one is signal, running light, and then stop, brake light. So I'm just going to add some plastic casing to this and wrap it in some fabric tape, and then I should be able to mount the actual bracket. Okay, there we go. I tested the running lights and the brake light on this side, so I need a helper out here before I can test this brake light, but it should be wired up right. So I'm going to go ahead and attack the signal light switch. So I got the steering wheel off, and there's this tab here. The original thing had kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, a control module or something that kind of slid over, and I think this acted as a detent to hold that in place. So this is in the way. It's just a couple of tack welds. I'm gonna grind this off just to clear the steering column, and then the switch gets mounted on here, and then it needs to get wired up. And hopefully I'll be able to get that, and it should control the signals, the horn, and the hazard lights. So here's the switch, came from Amazon. I looked at a bunch of different types of switches, and there's some switches that are for kind of hot rod classic cars, and they didn't have the best reviews. In fact, all of these kind of aftermarket switches usually had pretty crappy reviews, but what are you going to use? But I like the kind of look of this one. It sort of seemed kind of more industrial looking than the rest of them, and it was more basic. This one was marketed for adding signal lights to UTVs and other off-road vehicles like golf carts and stuff. So you can see it's a basic signal switch, and this switch comes out and it acts as a hazards, and on the end of the column there's a little horn switch. And this kind of solved my problem with where I was going to put a button for the horn. So, and then you just use a hose clamp and it gets clamped onto the column. So let's work on this. Came with some instructions and a wiring diagram. So we'll follow that and see if we can get this thing to work. Okay, these instructions are pretty useless because the color wires don't actually match. They're close. I believe the two white wires are the horn. There is a green and a red wire, so front and left signals. As for the gray and black, there are two gray wires and one black wire and a yellow wire. The yellow wire has something to do with power. This says yellow load, and it's coming from the flasher fused to power. But exactly how these gray and black wires factor in, it's not clear on this diagram. I think they have something to do with maybe the brake lights, which my system already has its own brake lights independent. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a battery here on the workbench, and I'm going to wire up some of this stuff with some test leads and just see what does what. And then based on this diagram, the best I can tell is there's supposed to be a blue and a yellow wire. There is no blue wire. There is a yellow. So if I connect the yellow to power, and then the red and green wires are the left and right signals. So if I connect the red wire, there we go, signal. And it also comes on if I pull the flasher. So if I run that power feed like this says, fused and through the flasher module, that should signal. And the same thing if you go to the green. Yeah, signal up. So that would be your left signal. And it comes on when you pull a flasher as well. And then I also tested the horn circuit, and it does mention in the instructions that the white wires are the horn. And if you connect one of these to power, go into the test light, and then we go to ground. Push the horn button. So that's easy enough. So just doing a little bit of work ahead of time gives me a good idea what to do here with these wires. Okay, there's the switch mounted, and it's just a little bit far from the steering wheel to you just gotta kind of stretch to reach it. But I have a shroud that covers up this bearing, and without cutting that back and exposing the bearing, I can't really get this any further forward. It's not bad though. Proportionately it looks good. I can play around with it. If I want to adjust that steering wheel a little bit, I can later, but for now I just want to get it working. And moving it, you know, a 1/4 inch one way or the other isn't going to affect the wiring harness, so I'm going to go ahead and start connecting stuff. Okay, so everything's temporarily wired up. I'm just going to do a test here. So I have this system with the key on. It's not hard. I could easily take this wire here and just throw it onto the power always box, and it would be live all the time. Driver side, passenger side. Looks like we're good there. Good there. And then 4 ways. Looks good on the front. Looks good on the back. Perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually wire this up. It's just temporarily, I just have the wires kind of spliced together, so I need to wire them together with proper connectors and put on some plastic tubing to protect the wire, and then mount it up under the dash with some zip ties, and we're good to go. And then the next step would be to work on the horn. There's 2 white wires. I think I have to pull the tire and get underneath to mount the horn underneath the dash somewhere. And once that's done, it's pretty simple. Just got power to one of the wires and power to the horn. I could hook up a relay, but I don't think that's required at this point. We'll see. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of wiring done. I've got the signal switch working. And I've got the horn done, and I also wired up some stuff on the dash. There's lights that light up the speedometer, and also an indicator light for the high beams. I went ahead and wired all that. I figured the indicator light for the high beams would be a nice feature, and obviously the light on the speedometer. But the signal lights are a key on situation. And there's the front. And the back, and obviously the passenger side, they're working too. And then it also has the hazard light. You pull this out and you get all 4. for hazards. Good to go. And last but not least, got the horn button. So normally on a Kubelwagen, I believe the horn is mounted externally right here. I've got a small motorcycle horn. It's mounted underneath the dash area. Temporary, eventually I'll work on the getting all the little details. But for now I need a functioning horn so that I can get the safety done. There's the dash light, so you turn the headlights on, so we've got the headlights on, and then that dash light goes on to light up the speedometer. And then I'll reach down here. High beams, you see the little blue light. Crazy how dirty the car's gotten while it's been sitting in the garage. All the side projects my wife's been doing, woodworking and welding and grinding. It gets pretty dusty, so the whole thing is just covered in a crazy layer of dust. But anyways, that was a lot of electrical work done today. I think that's it for electrical, honestly. Any other little odds and ends I did now would be just a bonus. But I think everything is up to snuff and ready for the safety check. So I think I'm going to wrap this video up here. Not sure what I'm going to be working on next, but I do want to attack that tune-up and see if I can get that engine running better, and get out and do a test drive and see how these torsion bars hold up. I had some concerns about the angle of the axles, so I'd like to get out and drive it around, just see what's going on with that. The engine should be running, but I have the tools now to do the tune-up, so that's due to try to fine-tune everything, the carburetor and the timing, and just get everything set up real nice. And of course there's a lot of other projects coming up, so keep watching. I suspect I'll have several more videos before the safety check, and once I get this on the road, that'll kind of be me wrapping up this series of videos. Anyways, leave a comment below if you have any questions. Want to know anything about the Kubelwagen, let me know. As always, like and subscribe, and definitely go back if this is your first time checking out a Kubelwagen video. Go back, right to square one and watch the whole series. You'll see just how far we've come with this project. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching.